I was lucky to find a video that was the construction of this jail I was in. So I was able to take a couple of pictures so you can get a more visual of the holding cell that I was in. So if you look at this picture, it's through the small glass window, and you see the cot on the left, the cot on the right, and then a desk separating the two. And that's where I spent almost a week, in that small area. And if you were able to open up that door and look in, just to the right is where that steel toilet and sink and scuffed up mirror was. So that kind of gives you a video, a little bit of what was going on. And then the next picture that you can look at is the outside. So kind of what it looked like on the outside of the holding cell. And you can see the steel doors, the small windows on those doors, and how locked down they are. And then sort of how it has 2 tiers. And hopefully that can give you a more idea of what it looked like as I've went through and told the story. So it was February 25th, 2020, and I had been in California in Las Colinas for 6 days in a holding cell in a holding dorm. I had been in front of the judge to sign a waiver giving Georgia permission to bring me back to Georgia. And I had had 2 showers, no change of underwear, no change of socks, no change of blues. I had spent several days in lockdown where I could not leave my cell. And then I get the news. I was told to roll it up, which means take your blankets, your gown, your towel, everything that they gave you when you came in. And I was told to follow the deputy. And I was being moved from 3A to 2E, which was considered a walking dorm. And I didn't know that at the time, what that really meant. But basically, I wasn't going to be closed off behind a steel door for hours at a time without seeing anybody. So as we're walking outside of the building that we walked out of, I asked the deputy, I said, "Hey, do you know when I'll be getting out of here?" And she said, "I don't know nothing about your case." I said, "Well, okay, it's Monday, and I've been here since Wednesday, waiting on Georgia to pick me up." And as I walked that walkway between the buildings, I just tried to breathe in as much as that fresh air and sunshine as I could. And, 5-6 days of being housed, being isolated, being on lockdown, no sunshine, no fresh air, I was suffering from severe anxiety and depression. So we go into this new dorm, and everything is open. So it's 2-tier, and you've got 23 bunks on the bottom and then 23 on the top. And she said, "You're going to be going upstairs to number 46. So I walked up these stairs with my arms full. Everybody was in their little cubby holes, like what I'll probably calling it throughout this story. And there you have your own little cot area. You have a desk and a chair. But then you also have like an end table that's got 2 shelves in it as well. And then you've got about 4 feet of a cinder block wall separating you between inmates on each side. And when you needed to use the bathroom, you walked out of your area, and then they had like a normal a toilet and sink for you to use. And then So, I mean, that was a little better. And at least I could see people and you could kind of whisper to people. And what was interesting is I looked over at one of the cubbies, and it was one of the women that I had went to court with that had kind of been pacing and, was worried about not being able to get out because she had broken rules in a program. So she was there, so at least I kind of knew somebody. And then the day room hours were same as the holding dorm. So you got the 7A from 10 to 10A in the morning, and then a 1P to 3P in the afternoon, and then a 7P to 10T at night. If the deputy didn't call lockdown. So that was still the same thing. They could still call lockdown and you'd just be stuck in your cubby area until they decided to let you out. And then next to me were two Hispanic girls that spoke very little English. There were a lot of Hispanic women and girls in this facility because you had the border right there. And she said, "Are you a cop?" I said, "No, I'm not a cop." And I still wasn't comfortable. But I could at least see people walk into the restroom. I could stretch my legs. I made my bed and my little area on my nightstand with my Bible and my stationery where I'd been journaling since I had been locked up. And there I'd been, for almost a week and not able to go back home. And the woman, Amy, that I had met on the court day, she whispered, "When you getting out of here?" And I said, "I have no idea." And I said, "Georgia has everything they need to pick me up, but they haven't came to pick me up." And she said, "Well, you're not going to be here long." She said, "Taxpayers aren't going to pay to keep you here if you're from Georgia." And so that gave me a little bit of comfort. I was like, "Well, yeah, no, that's right. I'm not even a resident there, and they're not going to keep me." So I thought about how growing up and even into adulthood, I'd always thought prisoners and people in jail were just mean and rough. But so far, everyone that I was meeting had shown compassion. And I was starving when I walked into this dorm. I mean, starving. There wasn't the ability to order commissary when you were in the holding cell. And so there was in this one. And I had the money that they seized from me when they arrested me. They take that out. Whatever money you have on you, they take it out of your wallet or whatever, and then they put the cash into like a bank or your books or something. So I had that money that I could order some things now. And I asked her, I said, "Do you think you can help me order my food?" She said, "Yeah, I'll help if you give me a candy bar." Now, those things are true. People in there will trade. Like a bag of chips for a candy bar, or if you help me do this, I'll give you that. And there was even a woman in there that was taking the strings from the blanket, and she was doing eyebrows for like a bag of chips. And it's so interesting. People in there will do whatever they can for extra food because really you are starving. And I think that's just part of it, really. Not only to starve you, to make you maybe take a plea because that's more money for them, or so you will find a way to order food because that's more money for them. It's just one big business. And so I picked my Bible up after I got settled, and I read a psalm, and it was 143:7. And it says, "Do not hide your face from me, or I will be like those who go down to the pit. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. And I really believe that this was a message that was for sure from God, that I was going to be picked up. The door opened down in the day room area, and another inmate came in with her blankets looking like I had just looked a few hours ago. And the deputy said, Linton, you're going to be in 45, which was right next to me. And let me just tell you about Linton. She was not happy when she came in there. And she walked in her cubby hole. She didn't even make up her bed. She just flopped down on that mat and went to sleep. And she had big, beautiful eyes, long red hair. She was tall. She was skinny. And I left her alone, and I just continued reading my Bible, hoping that I could get more promises and comfort from God. Like I said, that's all I had in there. Little did I know that Jesus was transforming me in bigger ways than I ever could have imagined. So then I hear ladies line up for chow hall, and I was like, hey, Amy, what's going on? Do we get to go somewhere and eat? And she said, yeah, we get to walk down to chow. And I was already so thankful that I was going to be able to walk outside and sit down at a table with other women and eat my food. I mean, it's the things that you take for granted until you are put in a place where you are just completely isolated. I know I keep using that word a lot, but you're completely isolated. And it was about a 10-minute walk. And it was wonderful because I was in San Diego. The weather was so sunny and warm. It was February, and you can only imagine what it was like in Georgia, cold, rainy, dreary. So I was happy about that, and I was happy to be able to get some sun on my skin because I needed that. I know that I was very deficient in vitamin D. And I needed the exercise. I needed to walk. I could tell that I was starting to lose muscle mass. So we walked into this cafeteria, and it kind of reminded me of a hospital cafeteria. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was, a really nice place. It had these big round tables with chairs around. You lined up, you went inside, and there was a window that they had trustees to slide you your tray of food, and it was hot food. And I sat down and I opened up this cardboard dish, and it had sloppy joe, a bun, fries, and I was like, oh my God, hot damn, it's a hot meal. And I ate my food as fast as I could, barely able to, being able to swallow it. And I just began to cry because I was so afraid so many times to eat that food alone in that cell, back in that holding cell. I was afraid, if I start choking on this food, that's it. Nobody's going to know. I won't be checked on for another hour. And so I felt safe with these other women around me to be able to eat my food. And I apologized. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I've been starving in that holding cell. I said, I haven't had enough to eat since I've been here. And one of the women at the table whispered, she said, when we get back to the dorm, she said, I'll give you an extra muffin. And I looked around, and I saw all the deputies looking at us like we were in some kind of high security prison for murder. And we had about 15 minutes to eat and then get up and then throw everything away, even what you didn't eat. And I watched some of the women, they would stuff apples down in their sports bras. And if you got caught, another felony charge. I mean, you could not even take a fucking extra apple back to the cubby. So I knew I'd be getting some extra food soon. But what about those women in there who weren't going to get extra food? Who didn't have anybody to put money on their books? And who was just in there eating whatever they could eat? And those were the ones who were sharing with me. They had nothing and they were sharing. I had been there almost, probably 6 hours in this dorm, and I was already allowing Jesus to work in my heart again and speak to me through those gospels that I'd been reading in that holding cell. And he was unfolding his love through the inmates. And we began to share each other's burdens, our food, our stories, and that was something that I had forgotten, something that I had been so in tune with for so long, and then had thrown it out and lost it and went back to the things of the world. So we hear, line up, get outside, and stand there until it's time to get back to the dorm. And then, they just stand there with their hands way up high above their hips. But I took that moment. I stood there. I put my face in the sun. I took some really, really good breaths, and just thank God for the California weather. And as hard as it was being in jail, I was not looking forward to going back to that Georgia winter weather. One of the reasons I wanted to spend the weather in Mexico was to avoid the rain, the snow, the darkness, the dreary days, the dead vegetation. So, ladies, line up straight, start walking back to your dorms, and no talking. So it's quiet. You're walking on that concrete path. Everybody's orange flip-flops are in sync, and they're just hitting the pavement. And most of the time that would have set off my agitation, but since I was getting 10 minutes in sunshine and fresh air, I didn't care if someone was firing rounds of ammo at my feet with an AK. I was going to enjoy that time I was getting in nature, because that's how important it was to me. I stood outside of the walking dorm until they did count. They would do a count before you left. They'd do a count when we came back in. And then I headed back to my cubby to take a nap. I knew that after I had had that nap, that we would be able to go down to the phones, and there was a little area where you could order your commissary. And I had $125 in my wallet the day that I was arrested at the border. And so I had that in my account for extra food, shampoo, soap, deodorant. I mean, it had been a week since I had used deodorant, real shampoo, soap. And I was used to taking 1 to 2 hot showers a day. And I had 2. And I knew that I needed to find something on that list of food that I could order that had some protein and that could help keep me from starving. I peeked over and I saw Linton. She was still passed out, and I still didn't know what she was in there for. And it's weird. It's like, you don't really want to associate people when you first associate with people when you first get there, but then also you don't want the isolation either. And so I was just missing my loved ones and my friends and my family, and there were still people that I loved dearly, that I was very connected with, that still didn't know I was locked up. And, I would have these thoughts sometime about my phone being, put away somewhere and it was turned off, and how many of my friends had tried to call or message me and wondering why they weren't getting a return call or message back, because I'm pretty good about, doing that back. But I still kept using that mantra over and over and over the whole time I was in there, through the whole process. I can allow this to traumatize me, or I can allow this to transform me. And then, I hear, ladies, the day room is open.